administration around our city employees. We ask, Lord, that you continue to lead and guide us in the ways that you would have us be, Lord, and show love and compassion to everyone that we come into contact with. Lord, we thank you for all that you provide for us. Continue to lead, guide, and direct us, Lord, each and every day in every decision that we make, and then we make it as a shining example of what you have done in our life. We thank you for all that you do. In your holy name we do pray. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Warner.
Here.
Councilmember Bovair.
Here.
Councilmember Goins.
Here.
Councilmember Koss.
Here.
City Attorney Garganese. City Manager Ducanich.
Here.
And Assistant City Manager Fuhr.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to move on to our approval of our agenda and minutes. First, we have our regular meeting of July 24th, 2019. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion from Councilman Bovair, a second from Councilwoman Koss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We're going to move on to our minutes from our stormwater workshop of May 14th, 2019, and B, our regular meeting of May 22, 2019, and C, District 2 Town Hall meeting of June 18, 2019.
Mayor Williams, I have changes on two of those.
Okay.
So, starting with 2.2A, the stormwater fiscal sustainability, I'd like to make a motion to approve and to amend them on page 5, paragraph 8, to strike the sentence that says, Councilmember Koss thanked council for their support in eliminating water quality projects, and express that this is something that concerned her. I must not have been articulate enough there, but I know I did not suggest that we eliminate water quality projects. So if we could just strike that,
Okay.
and with that, approve the minutes for that meeting.
Okay. Well, we're going to approve them all three of the
Okay? And then
changes.
the second one, I make a motion that we approve it, but strike page 14, paragraph 3, which is quoting me, but I went back and listened to it. It's not a quote, and it doesn't really capture my intent, and it really doesn't develop the decision anymore, so if we just strike that. Page 14, paragraph 3. And I will try to be more articulate, because obviously I'm not being understood, so. And then I'll add to that motion that we approve the minutes of the District 2 Town Hall meeting.
Okay, we got a motion from Councilwoman Koss,
Second.
second from Councilman Goin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 3, awards and presentation. Administrative Services, Service Director.
Yes, sir. We're having a presentation that's going to be presented by our Human Resources Manager, Lauren Stinnett, and Career Source Representative Jana Bauer.
Okay.
Just a brief presentation with certificates to our students that participated in this year's summer internship program.
Okay.
Mainly the students are from Cocoa High, so they're, and in the background, Samantha was kind enough to put together, or I think her intern put together this presentation that's going to play in the background. No. So we're going to start with Lauren, and next, after that, Jana's going to say a few words, and then there's a couple students that are going to say a few words about the program and their experience. So,
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Lawrence Stinnett. I'm the HR manager for the City of Cocoa. Thank everyone for allowing us a few minutes on the agenda this evening to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of our 2019 Cocoa Work Summer Program participants. We just had a chance to interact and spend some time recapping what they've done over the summer. We had interns and program participants that spent time in fleet learning how to change batteries and tires, and working in IT at our help desk, troubleshooting some of our computer issues, and HR welcoming new employees and helping us with those administrative process. As you can see, the presentation prepared by our public relations intern. She wrote some articles for our newsletter, and we've had just people made impact all across the city, from code enforcement to water field operations doing welding things, so the whole gamut. And one of the things that surprised me the most is 8 out of these 12 students had never worked anywhere, not a job anywhere before. They came here not knowing what to expect, but eager and willing to engage, and they really showed us growth over this last 5 weeks. We couldn't be more proud of all that they've done, all they've accomplished for the city throughout that time. And I think this is due in no small part to the efforts of our partners at Brevard Career Source, and specifically Jana Bauer. She did a good job selecting, grooming, preparing them for public service. They've turned out to be true public servants, and we all appreciate their efforts, but we appreciate Jana for helping us bring this program to fruition. So as a city, we couldn't be more proud of the contributions of these young people, and we know that the future is very bright if we have people like this to look forward to. So,
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Lauren. I appreciate that. Good evening, Mayor Williams and Council.
Good evening.
I'm honored to stand here tonight representing CareerSource Brevard and as the student mentor for the 2019 Cocoa Works program. This is our 4th year of this partnership, and every year just gets better and better. While all are not necessarily here tonight, we've had the opportunity to impact over 13 students' lives this summer. So each year we enjoy recruiting students by presenting this opportunity at Cocoa High School in a variety of classes that we've been invited to very openly by the high school itself. Students must apply and endure a pre-screening interview, which allows us to better understand their expectations and their commitment level. Following the pre-screening interview, applicants are selected into the cohort class where the real work actually begins. In order to ensure their success, CareerSource hosts 2 full days, it's about an 8-hour day each time, of foundations training. And what we do here is we really just dive into the pre-work prep that we want them to understand. So this year we changed it up a little bit. We utilized a curriculum called Habitudes, and the idea behind that is using imagery to teach leadership attitudes and habits. And there's science behind it that we can associate pictures much better for those visual learners than others can, with just context in a notebook. So we started with the iceberg, which represents our character, and more importantly, what comprises the 90% of us underneath. And we talked about the importance of, if there's flaws in our character, if there's something going on the inside, it's going to ultimately come out on the inside. The reference we used here is the Titanic. The Titanic didn't sink because of a huge gash. It sunk because it hit the tip of the iceberg, not planning on what was underneath it, and had a couple of small slits in it that ultimately sank the entire ship. So we refer that back to the workforce. We took x-rays of ourselves, internally analyzing our motivations, passions, strengths, and weaknesses. We took a True Colors personality test, which helps us to identify how we think, how we act, and how we react to situations and why we do those things. It also helps for us to understand and have an appreciation for people who don't think like us, but we learn different approaches on how we can deal with them. We discussed puzzle pieces and box tops, which taught the importance of playing your role on a team and how you, the puzzle piece, fit into a much larger, bigger picture, ultimately the box top, which is the vision of the organization you're working for. We spent a lot of time on tappers and listeners, which taught us the importance of communication, how to actively listen, and how to use your voice and when you need to speak up. So in addition to the life skills, we discussed topics like how you act and dress matters, resume building, interviewing 101. And the students even heard from a local employer panel comprised of Brevard County Sheriff's Office, Edmond Law Associates, Health First, Salex Solutions Incorporated, and Walmart Distribution Center. The students had a full-blown opportunity to be able to ask any questions that they wanted to those employers. So students then interviewed and were placed in internships based on the best matches for themselves and the managers. The students this year were represented in code enforcement, customer service, engineering, fleet, human resources, IT, leisure services, public relations, and waterfield operations. As Lauren had mentioned, 80% of these students had never worked before. As their mentor, I am so proud and so honored to be representing these young adults that are sitting behind me. I'm also proud and honored to have worked with your amazing managers. Each year, your managers dive in and try to provide the best experience possible for these students. Because of their devotion, the students are graduating this program with a very in-depth understanding and respect for how a city functions and what it truly takes operationally. To my students, you have sincerely impressed me with your work ethics, your commitment, and dedication to learning all that you can. I looked forward to every site visit because it was another opportunity to watch you light up with passion as you explained to me what you had been learning. I saw many of you come alive as you found your confidence. Some of you have changed the course of your future based on the experience that you had here. Some of you have even applied for permanent positions right here within the city. Most importantly, when you all were challenged with an incentive, thank you for making perfect attendance at work these past 5 weeks. Everyone had perfect attendance.
Wow. Wow.
Something to celebrate. So students, I am very proud to represent you, and I am glad that you let Cocoa Works program be a part of your life. To the parents and the family, thank you for supporting your students. Their dedication, respect, and mannerisms are a true testament to the influences they have in their lives. Your young adults will leave a lasting impression no matter where they go in their futures. To the City of Cocoa HR Department, thank you for being the amazing partner you are year after year, helping support the onboarding, scheduling, management of the students, chasing badges, helping with time cards, and everything in between. And finally, to Mayor Williams and Council, thank you for recognizing the importance and impact this program has on our community. We do so much more than teach students how to become employed. We truly change their lives. Thank you. And so now I have two students that were very excited to have the opportunity to come up and tell their story. And so I'd like to invite Mackenzie Toller and Alexandria Gant up, and you'll hear some words from them.
Okay.
Yes. And whoever wants to go first.
Feel free, sunshine. Okay, I am, hold on, can I pull my speaker?
Yes.
I'm Mackenzie Toller, and this year through the Cocoa Works program internship, I was able to work alongside with Public Relations Department with Samantha Singer, and I know she's not here, but Rachel Horst. I would like to be the first to say I had no idea that this program would have been this interactive and shaping to my future. I never thought of it as just a get money quick job for the summer. My head Samantha Singer and Rachel Horst not only gave me daily tasks, but she also gave me an insight on my future. Within these few weeks, I had the time of my life, also changing my major. By changing my major from nursing or business, because I didn't decide which, to public relations and communications.
Wow.
You could say this experience had a huge impact on me. I had articles to write with the people to interview, being the first intern to have more than 2 articles in this most recent quarter's article, and a few in the upcoming issue in the fall. I was given instructions to edit the City of Cocoa secured website, and they even held confidence in me to photograph the first City of Cocoa Hurricane Expo. I've always had a passion for writing and a talent for churning out words like no other, and Samantha showed me that there's a career out there for me. I hope every young adult get a chance to have someone manage them like Samantha to guide me, because not only to show me a future career waiting for me, but she also helped me build professional contacts and get my foot in the door by allowing me to be a student member of the Florida Public Relations Association and the Space Coast chapter. My internship sadly did come to an end last week, but I'll always have this experience for life.
Oh, thank
Wow.
you.
Good job.
Hi, my name is Alexandria Gant. I was working as an administrative assistant to Melinda in WFO. Honestly, I wasn't sure what I was expecting when I came to this organization, but I knew that it would be a job where I could earn amazing experience, and I was right. I earned skills that, especially through foundations training in the beginning, that I can use anywhere. Interview skills, job skills, how to conduct myself around others. It was genuinely amazing. And on the job, I learned pretty much the same thing, how the city runs, how things are done, how people just interact, and it was amazing seeing people come together just with that one goal in mind of helping the city. I'm genuinely just lucky that I could do this, and I'm so thankful that I was able to.
All right, thank you to you both. You guys ready to graduate? All right. So students, when I call your name, if you can just come up and you want to stand kind of over here in the center, we'll take a group photo at the end, and then we'll let them get back to their meeting. So Brandy Bass. Haley Dean. Alexandria Gant. Kiana Jones. Atasia Johnson. Alexis Kelly. David Lopez. Maylee Navarijo Ochoa. Tierra Newkirk. Carson Sade. Dalen Sims. Mackenzie Toller. And Leon Taylor. I present to you the 2019 Cocoa Works Summer Internship graduates.
Thank you to every one of you, and also to the city staffers that was involved in this. And I thought Samantha was going to start crying over there for a second.
I was.
We'll give them a chance to clear out. Once they clear out, we're gonna recognize our police department employees, and Chief's gonna handle that, so.
Can I have Officer Brian De Los Santos and K-9 Kira please come up? Also Corporal Bracken and Agent Ben Erskine. look at the bow.
Pam?
Hey, baby girl.
So I'd like to tell you a little bit about why each of these officers are here, including the four-legged officer over there. You know, we're very, very proud, and I can say I'm very, very proud of all our officers and all of these officers here tonight. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Officer Brian De Los Santos and K-9 Kira. Officer De Los Santos started with us in 1997. Kira joined the team in July of 2018. She is the agency's, and Kira is our agency's only first ever female patrol dog. On Friday, July 5th at approximately 12:30 a.m., K-9 Officer Brian De Los Santos and K-9 Kira responded to the 600 block of Johnson Street to assist with a search for a woman who had reportedly took a bottle of prescription pills. After arguing with her fiancé, during the argument, the woman made suicidal statements and left her home on foot. After obtaining a description of the woman and her last known direction of travel, Officer De Los Santos deployed K-9 Kira to track the area. Kira tracked 1 block east to a home and located the woman hiding in a backyard shed. This woman came out of the hiding and she saw the officers and the dog. She was unharmed and we were able to get her treatment at the time. Corporal Ken Bracken has been with us since 2013. He's currently assigned to our Bravo Squad. Last week, after returning home from working his normal shift, he was preparing to shower when he heard screeching tires and a loud bang. Corporal Bracken immediately got dressed and went outside to find out what had happened. He discovered a vehicle had crashed and was submerged upside down in a roadside ditch. As others stood by, not knowing what to do, Corporal Bracken did not hesitate to enter the water and rescue the 2 people trapped inside of this vehicle with only about 6 inches of air left to breathe. His efforts saved the lives of both people in the vehicle.
Good job.
Agent Erskine has been with us since 2008. He is currently assigned to our Special Investigations Unit. Agent Erskine was off duty on a Thursday night evening helping a friend with home improvement projects. When he heard a neighbor screaming for help, Agent Erskine immediately ran across the street and found a young male on the kitchen floor. Agent Erskine believed the man was experiencing a possible drug overdose and immediately began to render aid. The victim was not conscious but was breathing and had a strong pulse. Agent Erskine continued life-saving protocols until Sebastian Police and fire medics arrived. The victim was transported to the hospital for additional care and a little bit later was completely revived.
Wow, good job. Good job.
I'd like to say that we are so very proud of these officers for their quick response. Whether they are on patrol duty or on personal time, they are always prepared to do whatever is necessary to help others. Our citizens are fortunate to have them in the front lines protecting and serving. And I would like to say thank you to each of them and then allow council to also thank them.
All right.
Thank you.
I also have from Pam at Tales at the Barkery, we have a little treat for Kira.
Sir. Are you Mike Campbell?
Long time no see, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, this next, our third item on our awards and presentation is presentation of certificates for completion of, for Councilman Goins and Councilwoman Koss. They went to and had their EMU training, which is elected municipal officials training. And they got some certificates here I'm going to present to them real quick.
All right. 89 in my house last night, my air conditioner. I'm not getting it. You get 3 more to go. Alex, 3 more. Right?
And that reads, on behalf of John Scott Daly, Florida School of Government, and Florida League of Cities, I am pleased to award this certificate to you for the completion of 18 hours of instruction at the Institute of Elected Municipal Officials in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. That's here, for Councilwoman Koss. That's the same for Councilman Goins. Sir. Okay. And our next item under awards and presentations is the city's annual investment report for fiscal year ended 9/30/18. It shouldn't take long. Go ahead. Sorry.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. In accordance with the statutes, Florida Statutes, Section 218.415, investment activity by a unit of local government has to be consistent with a written plan adopted by the governing body. The city has an investment policy that was adopted on July 27, 2010, and in that it states that on an annual basis, the city's investment manager shall submit to the city's finance director, council, and investment committee, if there isn't one, a written report on the long-term core investment funds. So at this time, I would like to introduce John Grady with Public Trust Advisors. He is the city's investment manager that was hired March 13, 2018, and the firm was selected through a competitive process, and he'll provide you with an update on the city's investments as of 9/30/18 and give you a snapshot of where we are today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. John Grady with Public Trust Advisors. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, my first time presenting to you in our role as investment advisor. And just take a moment, congratulations on the COCO Works program. I started my career as an intern in the Office of Management and Budget in Orange County just a few years ago, and my entire career has been, and then it led to my first job as a fiscal analyst at Orange County, and that's how I got started in the public sector, and it's been very rewarding. So congratulations to you on that program.
Thank you, sir.
I thought I'm hopeful what we can do is first I can open the presentation. Let's see if here we go. I thought we'd start with a few slides on the economic environment right now in the market, given some significant changes really in the last few months. And I will be brief and respectful of your time this evening, but certainly want to answer any questions that you have as I go through this as well. First, I'd like to say we've been working very closely with Ms. Bowman for this presentation, for the investment program in general, and we continue to take steps to improve, make sure we're efficient. And as you know, you have a recommendation for updated investment policy here on your agenda tonight as well. So just a few highlights from the overall economy. We had interest rates increasing for the better part of the last 2.5 years through last November. And then with a few things out there, the China-U.S. trade talks and others, we saw interest rates actually come down about a full percentage point along the yield curve. And next week is when the Fed meets, and they will likely cut the overnight rate. That overnight rate governs your short-term liquidity funds, and that would be the first time they actually reduce that rate in over a decade. The last time they did that was right around the start of the last recession. That said, the economy seems to be on pretty good footing here in the U.S. We've seen housing prices increase for the better part of the last 7 years. And in fact, as you can see from that bullet, prices are up about 78% since February of 2012. Housing has arguably been one of those, the main part of the component of overall economy that's contributed to growth really since the end of that recession in 2009. Unemployment remains very low. In Florida, actually, it's just a little bit lower than the national average, which is great. It's at 3.7% currently, and again, that's near 50-year lows. And then last month, about 224,000 jobs were created, which suggests that the labor market still remains strong. As I mentioned, interest rates have come down, and we'll talk a little bit about that, how you have a very well-diversified investment program to protect you both in rising and declining interest rates. And as I'd mentioned there, that last bullet, generally speaking, things seem to be on good footing here in the U.S. Now, when we talk about Fed rate cuts, and you're likely all reading a bit about an oncoming recession and when that may happen, and certainly no one has a crystal ball, but why are we talking about that when really some strong economic indicators here domestically, and a lot of it really comes down to the market's expectations or anticipations of what's going on, primarily in China and Europe. And so what we're showing here, I know there's a lot on this slide, but really the takeaway is if you look at the red and green dotted line, those are the longer-term trends of economic growth in China and Germany. And then the blue line represents the longer-term trend of growth here in the U.S. So while we have been on an upward trend, again, you see these other larger economies that have been slowing for the last few years. And so the concern is that that will bleed over into the U.S. economy. And so the Fed's thoughts, among others, is that hopefully maybe reducing that rate will continue to spur economic growth here domestically. And that remains to be seen. They generally don't cut rates when we're in a growth mode, but they did in fact do that back in 1998. They cut the rate then, and it led to a little bit more. We were in the second longest expansion back then, and it contributed to growth for the next couple of years. Of course, we did have that slight recession in 2000. Moving on to the interest rates, just as I mentioned, that potential rate cut that may or is likely to happen next week at the Fed meeting, at the Federal Open Market Committee meeting, I should say. This chart just gives us a little bit longer history and going back to the recession, where you can see that really steep drop there in 07 from a little over 5% really to that quarter of a point or almost zero. And in the public sector, we were really impacted by that because we have to remain very safe and very short in our maturity structure for our investment portfolio. So when investments in the short part come down quite a bit, it really impacts the ability to earn interest on our funds. And we saw that take that zero interest rate policy for about 7 years. And then in 2015, as you can see, as you move to the right part of the chart, we saw them raise the rate 9 times through last December. And it's been at 2.5% since December. And again, likely going to move down. On this next slide, just a quick takeaway is, again, there's about 100%, there's 100% chance by the market's perception of the Fed cutting that rate next week. But the bigger story is, if you go down to the bottom of this chart where the other white bars are boxes, is the market is actually also pricing up to 4 more rate cuts in the next 12 months. And where that is important for us is to ensure that we help mitigate any reinvestment risk or keeping all of your funds too short. And if rates come down, then again, that impacts your investment earnings. So finding a balance for the overall strategy, and by looking at this chart, and things change over time with different economic indicators, but right now there's a potential for rates to come down by more than 1 full percent, which would be impactful on earnings. So finding that balance. And then this chart is really just to sum it up for you to show we, after 2 years again of rising rates, where we were. That blue line shows us where we were back in November. And again, you can see a pretty dramatic decline in rates from last November through July of this year. And then lastly, just looking forward, this orange dotted line on this chart really just shows where does the market anticipate rates being. Again, this is not a crystal ball, this is not locked in stone, but right now, given the information that's out there, the thought is that longer term rates may level off about where they are now, but we may see short-term rates come down by as much as a full percent, again, just based on current information. So that was a bit of a summary. I'd love to take any questions on this part, but again, the next section is to really review your portfolio strategy and our take on that. Are there any questions from the council at this point? All right, thank you. So with that, we'll jump into your investment program review. And here on the first slide is really just a summary of what you're currently invested in. And let me just start by saying again that the primary objectives for your investments, number one is safety of principal, and that's ensuring that what you invest in, that you're going to get that principal back when it matures, and certainly hope to get interest payments along the way. So safety is the first objective. Liquidity is the next one. We want to make sure that your investment portfolio is structured so that you can ensure that you have ongoing liquidity to pay those expenses and not have to sell anything ahead of time to do that. But third is yield, and of course that's important as well. We want to help work with you and work with Ms. Bowman and her staff to ensure that you have a program that is earning a competitive yield in the market, because interest earnings can be helpful certainly when you're trying to balance the budget. So again, you're currently using local government investment pools. They're AAA rated investment pools. They provide daily liquidity. You have a money market fund with the Community Bank of the South. And then you'll see here we have 5 investment portfolios that are structured based on liquidity needs, and I'll go through each of these somewhat quickly, again, respectful of your time, but being sure that I answer any questions that you have. In addition to the individual statements for all of your portfolios, we also provide you with a monthly asset allocation chart, which you see here, and I know there's a lot of information on here, so certainly we could follow up if you have any questions. But the goal of this particular chart is to show you where you're invested, but also and mainly to ensure that you're in compliance with your policy. So on the right-hand side of the chart, you can see all of your investments where we actually break it out into individual issues for you. So you're not only showing compliance with each sector, but you're also showing compliance with individual issuers, showing where you're invested. And again, the goal is to provide you that level of detail on how you're invested. So jumping into the individual's portfolios, the first one is your enhanced cash portfolio. This is a very short-term portfolio in nature. It generally has a weighted average maturity or duration, and I'll use those terms synonymously. But a weighted average maturity of this portfolio is usually closer to about 3/4 of a year to a year. And it's normally structured to where you invest and you have maturities coming each month. And as those maturities come, they help provide liquidity for expenses. That makes sense in certain markets where you can invest even short-term and earn additional yield. In the current market, though, you can utilize your local government investment pools and achieve that type of earning. So the enhanced cash portfolio isn't necessarily as advantageous as it is in other environments. And so what's happening here is we're working with Ms. Bowman and her staff and likely going to, based on your liquidity needs, transition these assets into your operating portfolio, which is designed for longer-term expenses. And the goal there would be to achieve some higher income opportunities by investing out a little longer, since you don't need these funds for this short period of time, and again, using your bank account and your LGIPs for your daily liquidity. This, on all of your portfolios, but I'll mention it here, are very well diversified. Again, they're all invested in highly rated securities and investments, and it goes without saying, but I want to mention it here, it's all fixed income. You don't own any equities or anything. So again, the idea of fixed income securities is that they have a maturity date that you would receive principal when those securities mature. Your next portfolio that we'll cover tonight is your operating portfolio. The market value is shown there. You'll see the duration or average maturity of this portfolio as of June is 1.28 years. And if we compare that to last September, where it was 1.66 years, you can see where that's drifted a little bit shorter as these maturities have come closer, these securities rather have come closer to maturity. And as they start to mature here in the upcoming months, and you have a laddered structure, we'll look to reinvest those out there and look to extend the duration somewhat to help protect you, again, because if interest rates come down and all of your investments are very short, you're going to suffer from that reinvestment rate risk. So it's, again, finding that balance for you without trying to make a market call necessarily. Again, well diversified here with your portfolio. All of these portfolios are treasuries, agencies, and some highly rated corporate notes. The next one is your reserves portfolios, and the reserve portfolio you can see is that this is based on your bond indenture requirements, so maintaining these balances as required by any of the debt covenants that you have, and the goal here is to maintain a portfolio that is structured so that it earns income to help support the city, but also we don't want this to be too long because the bond covenants also typically talk about how market changes can affect the market value, and there are market value requirements. So we find a balance here, but generally this is what this reserve portfolio is designed to do, is to make sure that you're meeting the requirements of your bond indenture. Your debt service reserve is, again, another reserve-type portfolio. This actually is a portfolio, you can see the balance of 4.2, almost 4.3 million there, and that is that these are restricted funds for long, and so because they're restricted, there's an opportunity, again, to invest these out slightly long-term. Let me clarify, too, when I mention long-term, as you can see from these charts on the bottom left-hand side, your current policy allows for up to 7 years. We're going to recommend you reduce that to 5, but currently your investment portfolio is well below that 5-year mark, just simply with the way the markets are working and the yield curve. So your portfolios are generally in 3 years and under right now. So you can see that. So when I say long-term, again, I want to make sure we keep that in perspective and not a much longer as you might see in other areas. And finally is your 2018 bond portfolio. This portfolio we structured working closely with we worked closely with Ms. Bozeman on all these, but this one was the most recent one. And the idea here is to take these bond proceeds, again, find a strategy that will help increase income opportunities that can potentially help offset any cost increases from the projects associated with these bonds. And what we decided on was to utilize U.S. Treasuries and also an LGIP. The LGIP provides daily liquidity, and in the current market, it actually provides a very competitive yield. And then the laddered treasuries that we have that actually start maturing this month will provide ongoing liquidity as the project gets into its spending mode. And what we do is we work with the city with each maturity. If you don't need those proceeds, then we provide a reinvestment recommendation. If you do, and then those proceeds are spent on the project expenditures, which they're intended, then that money goes back and it's used, again, to pay for those project expenditures. I know that's a lot of information, but hopefully that was helpful for you, and that summarizes that part of it. The last session I have, and maybe we'll talk about it when we do the investment policy. I'll save this last slide for when we do the investment policy recommended updates. So with that, I'll complete this portion of my presentation tonight, and certainly want to answer questions.
Well, I just want to ask one question.
Sure.
So what is our exposure to fossil fuels? What percentage of our investments are in fossil fuels?
You know, that's a great question, and right now, I would say directly, you don't have exposure from a corporate notes standpoint. You're currently
I
invested.
saw Chevron in there.
Oh, sorry, you've got,
Exxon.
let me see here. I'm looking here, we've got Walmart, we've got JP Morgan and Wells Fargo, I know. And I know we have owned some Chevron and Exxon. I think that those, I'm just going through those. I believe those matured. So let me verify that,
Okay.
because I'm showing that we own Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, and Walmart currently, so really financial related.
Yeah.
But certainly fossil fuels, being Exxon and Chevron, have been not popular, but they've been utilized in public investments simply because of their ratings and the credit quality of those. But given that question, I'm not sure if you're opposed to that. Let me just make sure that I mention that we have an investment policy in place, and it provides some flexibility. So if there are additional restrictions that you want, social restrictions, for instance, that you don't want to invest in fossil fuels or other socially responsible type investments, we can always adhere to those. They don't necessarily need to be written in the policy. We just follow that, and you give us that direction, and that's how we make those investments.
Great.
Does that help?
Yeah,
Great.
thank
Thank you
you.
very much for that
Thanks, sir.
question.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, and we appreciate the relationship with the city.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to delegations. You got 3 minutes to expound on whatever it is you want to talk about, and we have up first Miss Kathy Hamilton Brown. If you can come up, please, state your name, address, and
Good evening.
good evening. Good evening.
Probably I'm not was leaving away. Kathy Hamilton Brown. 306 Edinburgh Drive, Cocoa, Florida, 32922. Last Tuesday, well, I work out in Endeavor Elementary. I'm the teacher on assignment. Last Tuesday, a radio station donated 660 backpacks to every school student at Endeavor. So we had to find a way. So my last resort was Chief Cantaloupe. So I called him on his personal cell phone. I had to describe myself to him, and he's like, "Oh God, what do you want?" Because I always call in for a favor. So when I told him what I needed, so he took out his own time with Mr. Dave Lightholder and used his own gas, used their own gas on toll, and even the trailer to go to Longwood and pick up the backpacks, load them up. It was 26 bags. Load them up, bring them to Endeavor, and unload them. And I just wanted, I told him thank you, but I also wanted to recognize him and give him a certificate of appreciation.
You're making
from
him blush.
Endeavor Elementary. In addition to that, he also, like 2 months ago, he let me be chief of Cocoa for 2 hours. So I just want to thank you for everything you have done for Endeavor and the community and the kids, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And can you give Mr. Lightholder his?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
All right, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Good job. Good job.
Wait a minute, somebody got to take a picture. I have to let my boss know, you know. Take it with my phone, I'm still on the clock. For work purposes.
Yeah, the time is what? The time is about what, 4?
Oh, okay.
Oh, man. So she's going to get paid.
AM?
Yeah.
I get comp time for this. Thank you so much. You're very welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Okay, next up we have Jennifer Kinney, please. Oh, it doesn't matter.
It don't matter.
Hi, Jennifer Kenny, 1917 Quail Ridge Court, and apartment 1901 in Cocoa, Florida, 32926. And I want to thank the mayor, city council, staff, and also Cocoa citizens for giving me a few minutes to speak this evening. So this is the second time that I'm going to get up at a city council meeting, and I want to speak about civility and just about, in general, being polite to our neighbors. So in the past few days, a post appeared on my local Nextdoor app, and for those who are not familiar with this app, it is primarily used by neighbors in a geographical area to look for lost pets, sell items locally, get referrals for home services, find jobs, etc., that sort of thing. However, in this post that I am referring to did not include any of those items. It started out naming names, referring to a lawsuit that inferred that neighbors should attend the next city council meeting to express their displeasure. The post pretty much went downhill from there, and I just want to be clear, we are neighbors, we all live in Cocoa, we are all have a vested interest in our community, and most of us in this room tonight do not have a law degree, nor did anyone on this in this Nextdoor app conversation string identify themselves as having a law background. And I just feel like we are not judge and jury, we are neighbors. Please be assured that it was me who filed the complaint with the Nextdoor administrator to take the post down. And if anybody wants to speak with me about this, my decision to ask that post be stopped, just tap me on the shoulder when I finish here and we can exchange information. And I'm happy to speak with you about this civilly because we are neighbors and we can speak anytime. So this past election cycle was very contentious here in our city of Cocoa. We as citizens are tasked with moving on for the greater good of our community. We have a real business to attend to at these city council meetings. I want to talk for a minute about the budget. I come to these city council meetings. I've been coming for the past 3 years. I've lived in Cocoa because I have an interest in my community, and I like to know what's going on at the city level. A lot of times, under the past administration, what would happen at city council meetings is all of a sudden there would be budget items would have to be moved, and a lot of times what would happen is without really a vote or discussion of what I consider a public discussion, we would find out that items would be approved by the city manager to be paid X amount more on contracts that the city had. And so speaking of that, I also noticed that tonight, on tonight's agenda, there is an item that is not going for competitive process for the HVAC units that are going to be used at the water department, and rather the city manager has been given carte blanche to do business with a company in Maitland. And I just did a quick Google search today, and I found that there are actually multiple HVAC contractors right here in Brevard County that do commercial work. And so my question is, why aren't we doing business locally? And so finally, I just want to say that Cocoa citizens, I ask that you align yourself with those on our council and in our city who are concerned with our real needs. I ask you to take a minute to examine the motives of those persons who have instigated arguments, provoked neighbors into arguments, who have caused our city council to be fractured, and at the end of the day have caused us, the citizens of Cocoa, Florida, to live in a city that either has unmet needs or our needs are not being fairly addressed. And I want to thank you all, and I appreciate the extra time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, next up we have Ms. Jerry Blanco.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. Before I begin, I just want to make one thing perfectly clear. This is not a personal attack on anyone sitting on this dais tonight. The election was over 9 months ago, and I think it's time to put that to rest. The reason I am here tonight is regarding information that I was recently made aware of, and that is the decision made by the city to represent Councilwoman Koss in a civil lawsuit that involves alleged actions that Councilwoman Koss engaged in prior to the election last November. At that time, Councilwoman Koss was a private citizen, not an elected official. In my opinion, this decision sets a dangerous precedent that could have costly legal ramifications for years to come, long after Councilwoman Koss is no longer on council. As a citizen of the city and a taxpayer, I would like an explanation. Mr. City Manager, Mr. City Attorney, would either one of you like to respond?
Mr. City Attorney, if you could.
Yes, I'd be happy to respond, Ms. Blanco. There is a pending lawsuit that you're referring to. Insurance coverage decisions are made by the city's insurance carrier. Coverage was afforded to Ms. Koss in this particular matter. I'm not at liberty to discuss any particulars regarding the ongoing litigation, as it's the policy of the city not to publicly discuss ongoing litigation.
I understand.
Relative to my role as city attorney, as you know, our firm is frequently assigned cases to defend the city of Cocoa and its interests, including the interests of its elected officials on behalf of the insurance carrier, and that was done in this case as well for this particular case.
So is it my understanding then that through the city insurer, there will be no additional cost to the city for your office representing this particular lawsuit for this particular council person, or any council person for that matter, whomever it may have been. I'm not singling out anyone. I'm just asking a question.
As you are aware, defense costs regarding insurance matters covered by the city's insurance policy are covered by the insurer.
So
which in
no
this case
additional
is
cost out of
FMIT.
the city budget, in other words.
The
You will
defense
not be
costs,
charged additional fees by the League of
in
Cities.
terms of the defense costs, attorney fees and costs are covered by the city's insurance carrier.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Before I close, I would like to state that I did make the comment on Nextdoor. That would be myself. Thank you very much for singling that out to everyone in the audience, but I was going to bring that up anyway. The comment I made on Nextdoor was regarding this particular decision. And Councilwoman Koss responded by making a false accusation on that same site Nextdoor, and I quote, "Jerry Blanco lost the election against me last November. She and her sister Jan Peckinpah have been promoting a frivolous and harassing lawsuit against the city of Cocoa and 5 representatives, including me. Jerry and her sister are using Nextdoor to try to defame me," end quote. Please let me make this perfectly clear to everyone in this room. I nor my sister are involved in a lawsuit against Councilwoman Koss, the
Ms.
city of
Blanco.
Cocoa, or any other
Ms.
individual.
Blanco, you need to address all of us. I mean, it's,
I am addressing you all, sir. I said this was not a personal attack against anyone sitting on this dais. I'm merely sharing information. And that was what my post on Nextdoor was. My post was reported as being uncivil, unneighborly, and/or offensive. I guess Nextdoor did not agree with that because they did not take my post down. Thank you.
thank you, ma'am.
It's down now.
Next up is Ms. Barbara Kinsey.
With that post, I'd like everyone on the dais to have a copy of it. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Councilman Gordon.
I'll wait.
Okay. Hello.
Good evening. Barbara Kinsey, 1628 Manor Drive, 32922. So, 2 concerns. A concern related to transit service and one to a speed limit. So I would like to note that I am aware about the upgrading of the transit facility on South Var Avenue, and I agree with Mayor Williams, as quoted in Florida Today, that transit is not a luxury, it's a necessity for many people. And my concern is the lack of passenger shelters at many bus stations. So when, for instance, I'm driving from Michigan to Publix on State Road 524, I see bus stops that do not have even a bench, or a bus stop that has an inclined bench. I've seen people sitting on the ground waiting for the bus. So, as you know, we have a lot of weather in Florida, and I think that bus shelters are absolutely necessary. When we enter Cocoa, we have to see that it is a people's city. So, so that was my transit concern. The other one has to do with a speed limit, and that is a speed limit between Walmart and Michigan traveling south. So when one travels south, one goes along the front yard of single home residences, and there you see children playing, you see toys, you see pets, and the speed limit is 45 miles per hour. And I certainly think that this is not right. So that, again, is southbound from Walmart to Michigan. So I hope that the city pursues these issues, and I thank you for
And ma'am, real quick, we've been addressing, we've been speaking with SCAT about shelters as well as some waste containers, because we know there's a lot of stops that don't have waste containers, and individuals are starting to leave their drinks and so forth, so on the side of the roads or at these stops. So we are addressing them. There's a cost associated with it, but we are addressing that there.
certainly, and that will encourage people to use also the transit system more. And as you say, it's a very
The shelters are crucial, especially, during the summertime as far as the heat and
exactly
as
the
well
sun
as
and the rain. I mean, we
rain.
live at a place where we
Yeah.
do have a lot of weather elements we have to protect people from.
But we are in talks with them about that, so they've identified all the ones that has it, so, and, but anyway,
Yeah, I
Councilman
got a
Bover.
question for John while you're up here. Didn't we vote on something about the bus shelters last year before the present board came aboard?
We did in last year's budget, and we met with SCAT last year, or in the prior year, and to try to work out, I mean, we have a meeting in a couple of weeks with them, trying to leverage and maximize the investment in terms of getting shelters, and identify some of the obstacles as it relates to specifically some of those on the state roads because of the right-of-way and the permitting requirements, and the ability to actually put a shelter in. And then the issue of, is that stop going to be there based on future, passenger traffic, or passenger where they've moved them in the past on us. So we want to make sure that we're putting where we believe that they're going to stay because there's significant investment. So we do have a meeting in a couple weeks with SCAT, and that's one of the topics, as well as increased usage. And then with regard to the speed limit, we'll check that, but it is a state road for which we have no control over. But if it's 45, I thought it was 35, but we will.
It's 45, and I've never seen that before. I usually see 25 miles per hour driving in front of people's...
Yeah, it's a state road. It's good possibility.
It's Clear Lake.
Yeah, I understand.
And there's one particular house right there on the
Yeah.
corner that has a family with a lot of children, and they do play in the front yard, and they're from me to Barbara from the road. Yeah.
Before Aldi's.
Yeah.
And can I make just one comment? The Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization, just at our last meeting, voted to approve a campaign called Vision Zero. And the whole idea is to bring down pedestrian deaths to zero by correcting our roads so that they are more pedestrian friendly. Because there really is no need to have pedestrian deaths.
Of course.
And I was just going to add on that same roadway, that segment actually going all the way to Industry, there actually is a project that's been approved, and I think they've already done the right-of-way acquisition. Or they're in the process to widen that segment consistent with south of Michigan and then going to Industry.
Okay. Regarding shelters at bus stops where the condition is use of the stop, can those being removed once, let's say, the stop changes, the bus stop changes, can they be just removed?
Well, the other issue is building it within the right-of-way that exists. When US 1 was widened, there was very limited right-of-way. There was things that the city was desirous of doing in terms of enhancements. That was one of them, and because of the limited right-of-way, there were some problems with that. But so the other thing, you're not just putting a bus stop. You got to pour a concrete pad. You got to make it ADA accessible. It's more than just putting a bench down. We need to make sure that if we're putting a stop out there, we're making sure it's accessible to those that might have a disability and require that. So it's not a inexpensive proposition, but it's just something we are working with SCAT.
Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 5, consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion from Deputy Mayor Warner, second from Councilman Bover. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to public hearing. Mr. City Attorney.
Okay, ordinance number 11-2019, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cocoa, Brevard County, Florida, amending Chapter 22 of the Code of the City of Cocoa to remove certain existing wastewater and water utility rates, fees, charges from the city code, which are otherwise adopted by resolution, and to make further housekeeping amendments providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code severability and an effective date. This is second and final reading of this ordinance. It's also a public hearing item, and no changes have been made to this ordinance since the council passed it on first reading at the last meeting. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'm going to close it to the council and open up to the public for any public comments, because this is a public hearing, so if you would like to expound on this issue, feel free to come up. Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public at this time. Yes, sir. Oh, okay. I'm going to still need for you to fill out a card later, but before you leave, but
You should know that.
state your name and
Walt Roslin, 1628 Manor Drive, Cocoa, Florida. Just a follow-up on the Clear Lake pedestrian situation between the...
this is...
Between the north
Yeah,
side of the campus.
No, this is...
Well, we're on a public hearing now.
Oh, I thought you...
for the water
Oh, I'm
bill,
sorry.
yeah.
I'll go sit down.
Oh, yeah, we, thank you, sir, that's all right.
I make
That's
a
all right.
motion to approve.
Hold on one second.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this time I'm going to close it to the public, reopen it to the council. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Councilman Bovair.
Second.
Second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Item number 2, Community Service Director. This is
Just postpone.
postponed as consideration now.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. We're asking that the council postpone the consideration of the bonding development agreement between the City of Cocoa and Integra Land Company. We wanted to preserve the advertisement, so it...
Yes, ma'am. Okay, this, what is the wishes of the council?
Well, you got a good, it's a public hearing.
Public hearing.
No, we're actually postponing this, so it's not, we're not hearing it.
Oh, motion to approve.
We got a,
Hold on, Mayor. It
Yes,
is
sir.
actually under
public
public
hearing.
hearing.
oh, so what I have to,
Yeah, one wasn't really necessary, but it's fine to just open it up.
open up and then close it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I'll open this up to the public at this time for any public comments. Seeing none, I'll close it at this time, reopen it to the council.
Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Deputy Mayor Warner,
Second.
second from Councilman Bovair. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously.
Right. And Mayor, for the record on that item, it was postponement until August 4th, the City Council's meeting on August 14th, 2019. Correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
That's in the body of the agenda.
We're going to bring it back, you mean?
It'll be brought back either to be heard and decided or postponed again, I would
Everything
imagine.
broke at once.
Thank you, sir. Item number 3, Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, sir. Next item is ordinance 12-2019. This is first reading of ordinance number 12-2019, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cocoa, Brevard County, Florida, amending Appendix A, Article 11, Section 22 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Cocoa to allow parking as special exception use in the Cocoa Village subdistrict of the Cocoa Waterfront Overlay District, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code severability, and an effective date. Again, this is first reading, but this is a public hearing item due to the fact that it addresses specific uses that are permitted under the zoning district designation. I believe you're here to talk about the ordinance, so I'm not going to steal your thunder.
Thank you, sir.
Expound upon. So just a little background. The ordinance came about because we had an application earlier this year for it's 2 parcels, but it's the former Bank of America property, just 1 block over. The applicants wanted to establish a paid parking use on the site, and that would be then the principal use because the bank is not there. So the current zoning, the CBD district, allows the use as a special exception, so we went to the Board of Adjustment for that. However, in that process, we realized that the Cocoa Waterfront Overlay District which is also over this parcel, and includes a big portion of the village, does not allow that use. So therefore, this ordinance is in part to address that. And so what we're proposing by the language of the ordinance is to allow parking as a principal use by special exception in the CBD district and also the Cocoa Village sub-district of the Cocoa Waterfront Overlay District, with a footnote, and that states that parking, thank you, that parking uses should be located either in a garage conforming to requirements of the subsection, or with the exception of municipal lots, in a surface lot that's shared with a commercial, institutional, or civic building in accordance with the on-site location requirements, and that a parcel that is solely occupied by a surface lot that's in existence on the effective date of the ordinance would be therefore exempt, and that's Exhibit A. I looked through, you can see in the, now that we've got this up for the public as well, the map, all of the green parcels are this sub-district. And, thank you. The two in red are the two existing parcels in that area that, where the principal use is parking, but there is no structure on that property. So the concern was that the bank parcel, which sits right here, has a structure, and the code would then apply. However, that would make this portion of the property, because it is a separate parcel and is nothing but parking, it would make that an unlawful use, and as well as this parcel, which is parking really for St. Mark's Church. So therefore, they've been exempted from this footnote, or in this footnote. So we are requesting approval of the ordinance.
And I just want, and I just want to add so that people understand that this is one of those deals where the owners of the property they really don't have to allow us to use that parking at all, because it's a liability to them. And so regardless of what happens or how we go here, you know, if we denied it, then basically he can just block off the parking and there we go. And, or we can approve it, and of course, he's gonna put paid parking on there, so we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, so, and it's once again, it's a liability issue, so. Councilman Goins.
Is there anything proposed to be done for the other portion of the parking where the drive-through area?
Yes, his special exception use encompasses that area, the south part where the drive-through is. His plan was to make that parking as well. He wasn't going to take the overhead structure down, because it was a cost he didn't need to necessarily incur now, but there would be parking delineated under that, in that area.
So he's not going to tear that down, he's going to leave it there?
Not right now, no. They have no plans for the building per se at this time.
So that's where we are with this, and Councilwoman Cost.
Oh, so what are his plans then? Because, I mean, this is probably the most crucial piece of property.
Yeah, paid parking.
Long-term, I don't know. You know, they did think about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Matt and I have met with the owners on, well, one of the owners on multiple occasions. And if you can see to the west of the red box across from the Riverfront Park and the Civic Center, you'll see a parcel that actually, it's like a flag lot coming out to Delanoy. There's another, we'll just say, there's other individuals that own that parcel. So as a whole, because the building sits across both parcels. And until such time that they can, you know, I know they've been working with the trust, their property is within the same real estate firm, and they've been working with them to try to come to some, because they own their property outright. There's no debt, and they've shared that with us, but that's the holdup right now, is there's not unity in ownership of those three parcels until such time. I mean, but they have, and we've put them in contact with one of the consultants that helped develop the vision, going back to the 2008 waterfront plan that showed what the development potential is for that property. And but until they can get the unity in that and ownership and/or agreement from those other property owners, I think there are 2 sisters or cousins that own it, but until they can obtain that, they can't really do much.
Well, it's kind of right in the middle of things, so, I mean, would people even be able to access it during festivals and when we need?
Well, actually, they are accessing it, and what this is going to allow is if somebody parking there and he wants to charge, it's because, essentially somebody could park there, fall, he's got their liability, but he's not receiving any income to buy an insurance, pay for the insurance to mitigate his risk. So I think that's the driving measure behind his request, because people are using his parking for free, and he's the one responsible if somebody was to, get injured or something was happening on the property.
Personally, I think it's a great idea because it'll get people used to paying for parking in Cocoa Village, so when we build a parking garage, it'll be a big deal.
Yeah, I like that one.
Okay, this is
Thank you. So is this going to be an everyday paid parking situation, or just special events?
No, it's an everyday thing. They're contracting with a company, an actual parking management company in Orlando.
Yeah, Orlando.
Yes, and they're planning to put 2 solar ticket, boxes
Oh, like
out
little
there.
gates or something?
Not gates, no. He said he wasn't going to do gates, but where you actually go and get the ticket. You pay the money and put the ticket in your car, that kind of thing.
Like it is over in Orlando for the convention center, if you park out front and not in the actual parking lot, you go punch some numbers in, tell them what spot you're in, and get a ticket. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That works.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to close it at this time to the council and open it up to the public for any public comment. Seeing none, I'm going to close it at this time and open it back up to the council. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion from Councilman Bover.
And I'll
Second
say,
from Councilman Goins.
and just a little more discussion, just that I'll be so glad when we have other parking or we have other solutions,
Yeah.
so that we don't use the primest property in all of Cocoa for a parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Got a motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we can move on to item number 7, which is council business. Approve. Do you have to read this in, Mr. City Attorney, this resolution, or is it just?
I think we tend to do that, even though I don't think it's required, but there's some information that should be publicly announced.
Okay.
So let me just read it in real quick, Mayor.
Okay.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Cocoa, Florida, establishing the rollback rate, millage rate, adopting a proposed tentative millage rate, and setting the date, time, and place of the public hearing to consider the proposed tentative millage rate and tentative budget for fiscal year 2020, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent resolutions, and providing for an effective date. Pursuant to this resolution, the rollback millage rate to be used for millage calculations for the City of Cocoa for fiscal year 2020 is set at 5.7844 mils, and the proposed tentative millage rate for the City of Cocoa, Florida for the fiscal year 2020 is 5.9790 mils, which is 3.36% greater than the computed rollback rate of 5.7844. And this resolution proposes a public hearing shall be held in the City of Cocoa in the council chambers located at this location on September 11, 2019 at 6 p.m. to consider the proposed tentative millage rate and tentative budget for fiscal year 2020. So this is the resolution that kicks off the public hearing process in coordination with the tax collector's office on notifying the public.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So I'm going to give you a presentation to kind of run through the process and show you information to help you decide on the millage rate that you're going to adopt. Just to review, this is part of the truth and millage or TRIM process, which is the process by which governing bodies adopt their millage rates and their budgets. It's a joint process with the property appraiser and the tax collector. The millage rate that is going to be adopted tonight would go out on the TRIM notices that the property appraiser will be mailing out shortly.
Thank you, ma'am.
So the objectives of this meeting are to establish a rollback rate, which the city attorney did include in the reading of the resolution. It's also to adopt the proposed millage rate. And so, again, to be in compliance with the statutes, because this whole TRIM process is in the Florida statutes, the city has to establish a proposed millage rate by August 4th, which is within 35 days of TRIM compliance process for the next fiscal year. This vote requires a simple majority, so 3 out of 5 votes. Also, at this meeting, Council is going to be requested in the adoption of this resolution to set the first public hearing for the adoption of the tentative millage rate and tentative budget at a public hearing on September 11th at the regularly held council meeting on September 11th at 6 p.m. I would like to remind council that you'll be voting on a proposed millage rate at this meeting tonight. And then in the future, if you want to make any changes to the millage rate, you can only vote for a decrease in the millage rate. You won't be allowed to do an increase in the millage rate in accordance with the statutes. So to review the ad valorem tax base, city got to experience a nice increase in the taxable values in this fiscal year in 2020. They're on the bottom. The city experienced a 12.6% increase. A lot of that was due to a couple of properties coming online and being included in the taxable values this year. At the top of the chart, you can see that the negative numbers, that was where the city was losing property values because of the economic downturn. And then since fiscal year 2014, the economy's come back a little bit stronger, and so the city has been able to experience some property tax increases, property value increases, I'm sorry. So on this slide, just to kind of review with you, the previous slide showed you the property values, and this is kind of a history of the millage rates that have been adopted. The kind of middle column here, it says ad valorem revenue at 95%. The statutes again require that we budget at least 95% of the ad valorem revenue that is calculated. So staff is prepared a budget using 5.979 mils, and as the city attorney stated in the resolution, that's what council is being requested to adopt as a proposed millage rate at this meeting. At that millage rate of 5.979 mils, we would generate revenue at 95% of approximately $6.2 million. Which would result in a $719,000 increase from the previous year, a 13.1% increase in ad valorem taxes collected. And then I would also like to note on this slide that since 2015, council has kept the millage rate at 5.979 mils. So at this meeting, you have a few options for your millage rate. To demonstrate at the top of this slide shows you that at the 5.979 mils set last fiscal year, we generated estimated $5.5 million budgeted at the 95% in ad valorem revenue. So at this meeting, you have a choice to either keep the millage rate the same at 5.979 mils, go to the rollback rate of 5.7844 mils, or do what's called a supermajority rate, and if you'll see there, it calculates at 12.0927 mils, but by law, you can only go up to 10 mils, and that would require a 2/3 vote. So setting the millage rate at 5.979 mils, again, it would generate $6.2 million in ad valorem revenue, which would be an increase of $719,321, and we would have to advertise a tax increase because we'd be actually collecting an increase in ad valorem revenue. So as part of collecting the money, the ad valorem money, the city has 3 different CRAs, and so the city is required to pay into the CRAs the tax increment funding. So whenever the CRAs were established, there was a base rate of the property value, so any increase in the property values, the city has to pay for that increase into the CRAs. So the city collects in the general fund all the ad valorem revenue, and then it pays out into the CRAs their portion that basically the general fund collected for them. So at the millage rate of 5.979 mils, the Cocoa CRA would collect $744,000, Diamond Square would collect $136,000, and US 1 would collect about $205,000 for a total of $1,085,000 being paid into the CRAs. So collectively, all the CRAs would see an increase in their revenues of $84,000. And then over to the right-hand side of the slide, it's demonstrating what that change would be if the rollback rate was adopted. So collectively, the CRAs would see an increase in their revenue of $35,000, and the valuation would have changed by $1,049,000. So as part of the adoption of the tax rate, usually council wants to know what's the impact to a single-family homeowner predominantly. So this slide here shows what the impact would be adopting the 5.979 millage rate as compared to fiscal year 19. Of note, we took into account a $50,000 homestead exemption, and also in the middle column there, you see the valuation with a 1.9% increase. Due to the Save Our Homes, the increase in homeowners' property values can either go up 3% or CPI, and in this instance, the CPI was less, and so it's capped at a 1.9% increase. So we provided you some different examples of valuations of homes at $100,000, $150,000, $200,000, and $300,000. And then, as you can see with the calculation of the credit for the homestead exemption, at $100,000, a property owner would see an $11 increase in their taxes. Single family, $150,000 would show a $17 increase. $200,000 home would see a $2,300 increase, and then a $300,000 home would see a $34 increase. And then the last column is demonstrating at the maximum millage rate, the most that someone would experience would be about $2,500 on a $300,000 home. Next thing that council usually wants to know is how do we stand compared to other cities in the county. So this slide demonstrates for you what we have found out through talking to other finance people what the proposed millage rates are. And also I'd like to note the ranking on this slide is based on the proposed millage rate, not on the current millage rate. So you might look at that and say, oh, that's not really the sixth looking at the current millage rate. So if adopted at 5.979 mils, the city would rank sixth. However, I would also like to note down at the bottom, Cape Canaveral and West Melbourne, their millage rates are really low. And that's because they have contracted services with the county for either police or fire. So they have to take that component out of their millage rate, and that's why their millage rate is that much lower. So at this meeting, we're demonstrating here for you that in the last fiscal year, at 5.979 mils, we would collected in fiscal year 19 about $5.5 million, and then in fiscal year 20, about $6.2 million, so that would be an increase at 95% of $719,000. So the next steps after this meeting, the work's not done yet. We'll be having a budget workshop on August 7th at 5:30 PM with council, where we'll be going over with you the proposed budget and what's included in that. Then you'll be having a first hearing to adopt the tentative millage and tentative budget at the meeting on September 11th. And then following that, you'll adopt a final millage rate and adopt the budget at the second public hearing on September 25th at 6 PM. And also, I would like to note at this time that council has been provided with the budget where we are right now. Y'all were provided this evening the budget to review, to get ready for that budget workshop on the 7th. So at this meeting, again, per the resolution that the city attorney read, you're being requested to adopt a resolution establishing the rollback rate, and then you're being requested to adopt a proposed millage rate of 5.979 mils, and the rollback rate is 5.8744 mils, and then also to set the first public hearing for the adoption of the budget on September 11th at 6 PM in council chambers here at City Hall. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, ma'am. Just glad you got that reminder in there. Just whatever we set it at, just remember, you can't go back and go above that, but you can decrease it. So if we set it at the 5.97090, we can still decrease that. So just so everyone knows that.
597.
So
What is it, 0.5?
it's 5.97090.
The 5.9790.
Right.
Yeah.
9790? Can you put it back on the screen?
Yes, sir.
I'm getting a little,
Right there, 59790.
Yes. I don't know why I got that all in there, but
okay. Well, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the millage rate at 5.9790.
Second.
The fiscal year,
I'm sorry.
right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
okay, we got a motion from, yes, sir. Go
Just to clarify the record, you're actually setting the tentative millage rate.
I'm sorry, I'll rephrase that.
This is the
Tentative.
This is the proposed millage rate,
Proposed,
Yeah.
and you're setting the date for the first hearing
Right.
and adopting the rollback rate.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. We got a motion from Councilman Bover, second from Councilman Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next up is item 7.2, approve code enforcement settlement agreement in the amount of $2,500 for property located at 1055 Mitchell Street. Chief Cantaloupe.
Yes, Mayor and Council. There's actually been a change to this agenda item. Since this agenda item was entered and published, there was still a code violation on the property. That violation has been corrected, and there are currently no code violations on the property. So in talking with the city attorney, the suggestion was that not to do the settlement agreement and just treat this like a regular lien reduction. So staff's recommendation to council would be to reduce the code enforcement lien to $2,500 for the property located at 1055 Mitchell Street, with the stipulations that the $2,500 be paid in full to the city of Cocoa, and that the property ownership be transferred to Ms. Diamond Anderson within the 30 days.
Thank you, sir. I got a card from Ms. Anderson if you'd like to come up. I don't. Just state your name and address, please, ma'am.
I'm at 617 Johnson Street, Cocoa, Florida, 32922.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I am here to ask that the City Council approve the requested lien reduction on 1055 Mitchell Street for the following reasons. I am 21 years old, employed, a single mother of a 2-year-old who will be celebrating her 3rd birthday next week. I grew up in the Broadmoor Acres neighborhood. We moved there in 2000. We moved out of the area in 2016. due to the bad area, but today it has improved considerably, and I see it continuing to turn around to be a place I feel comfortable raising my daughter in our own home. I have completed the first-time home buyers class offered through Community Housing Alliance. The reduction amount of $2,500 is more than double what the city has invested in the issues that once existed, but which have been corrected and will not be an issue if I am able to close on this purchase tomorrow and become a homeowner at a payment I can afford. The opportunity to own my own home will provide my daughter and myself a level of security for our future that will allow me to thrive and provide for my child. I am here tonight with a mentor from my church and some family members who will speak to my commitment in making a better life for myself and my daughter. Approving this request will not give the seller any financial profit benefit, as the home is being sold at a loss to them, and the $2,500 will be held in escrow by the title company at close tomorrow and paid directly to the City of Cocoa out of the seller's proceeds. I look forward to embarking on this chapter in my life as a homeowner, and thank you for your acting to make that happen. While I will answer any questions you may have, I must inform you that the terms of the purchase of this home are confidential, and I have agreed to ensure the mortgage provider remains anonymous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Appreciate it.
And Chief, if you could thank Mr. Bont, Officer Bont, our city manager, our code manager.
Code manager.
Yeah, for his effort with reference to this property, but I normally don't make a motion, but the chair is going to make a motion to approve this.
Second.
What we want?
We got a motion from the chair, we got a second from Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to
Congratulations,
item.
Simon.
Yes, congratulations. We're going to move on to item number 3. Consider the appointment of Mr. Lloyd Roberts as a regular member of the Code Enforcement Board through June 2021.
Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Councilman Bover.
Second.
Second from Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay.
Is he here?
Yeah, he here.
Is he here?
Yeah, out there now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. How you doing?
Welcome aboard.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item number. Oh, go ahead, Councilman Goins. I'm sorry.
Well, I wanted to make address the lien reduction situation.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I had my light on, but
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna go back, and I talked to it with the city attorney about this today as well. I think with this particular situation, you have one of my closest guys and one of the guys that's within the city of Cocoa. You made several remarks regarding this situation, and I want to kind of talk on public about this situation. I believe everyone on the council that I sit with is able to make a professional decision, no matter how personal they may feel about a particular person or party. I believe that. And several remarks was made through email that I felt disrespected because I'm sit up here with all of you. And I believe that we are able to sit here and make decisions properly. And I believe we did the right decision today. I'm proud of that young lady. I've known her all my whole life. But I just don't like anyone to insinuate that anyone on this council cannot make professional decisions, no matter what it may be.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that statement. I had my light on before, but
I'm sorry.
I just want to publicly say that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and the thing about it is, this is, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if it's done right, this is something that it's not new to me. I mean, we've done this before when I was on council before, and I mean, if things are done, there's a process, and if the process is followed and is followed correctly, then I don't have an issue with it. I mean, that's just the way it is, so it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what's going on, we've done it in the past, and but it's just, things need to be done correctly, And that's just the way it is, and that's what we were elected to do a job and to do it the right way. So everyone did their due diligence, so,
But I'll have to say, there are a lot of
Yes, ma'am.
moving pieces here.
yes, ma'am, there were.
We don't want to see that again.
And it wasn't necessary.
Yes.
Well, and the other thing I'll say, just for the record, that as someone, I was a single parent for 10 years. In fact, home ownership really helped elevate myself and my sons by an appreciation in the property that later paid off, and my being able to get a graduate degree, my helping my sons get their college degrees. So it really is a great thing. But also, Abby and I sat in a workshop, the Save Our Indian River Lagoon Citizen Oversight Committee last Friday, and learned about pipes. And we've got, the first thing when I saw this property, the fact that it was sinking, is I really wanted to verify that we didn't have some pipes beneath that were leaking. And homeownership is a great thing. There are some risks involved, and it really concerns me. And I know that the mortgager is a benevolent soul, but it concerns me that she's taking this on without having an inspection. Those cast iron pipes, what is the lifespan? 50, 60, well, they're well beyond their lifespans. So also, having been a homeowner and having my laterals go out and having to come up with $20,000, that can be hard, and some people just walk away from it. So, I hope that there are some protections in place for people, that are trying to elevate themselves like that, so it doesn't, in fact, end up being down the road something they regret.
Thank you, ma'am.
But I wish her the best.
Thank you.
She certainly deserves it.
Okay, all right, next item is approval of revised investment policy. Finance
Finance
Director.
Director's busy tonight.
Yes, she is.
Yes, I am. This agenda item is requesting approval of an update of the city's investment policy. The last time the policy was updated in 2010 via Resolution 2010-101 at a meeting held on July 27, 2010. And so it's necessary periodically to go through the city's policies, particularly some of these big, broad, overriding ones like the investment policy. So I've worked with Public Trust Advisors, or PTA, and we've reviewed some of the items and felt that some of the things need to be adjusted a little bit more to allow us to have some broader investments within certain issuances, and then to make a couple changes for the investment pools. And so at this time, I would like to bring back our advisor, John Grady, and have him go over briefly the changes to the policy that I'm requesting.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Thank you, sir.
And Councilwoman Cost, just to address your question earlier, I know we were doing a year-end update, and I really wanted to cover the June 30th just to bring you all up to speed on your holdings. When you mentioned those names, you did, as of September 30th, you had three. You had Chevron, Exxon, and Consumers Energy. As you mentioned, of the first two, all three of those have matured. They're not in the portfolio. But I bring that up because it is something that I would ask for you all to consider, because if that's something you wouldn't want us to invest in the future, we would want to know that. Okay, thank you. And then I'll be brief, but be
Thank
sure,
you, sir.
please let me know what questions you have on this.
You make a lot of people happy.
I've got one slide on that one. How's that? And the summary of the changes we're recommending, and Ms. Bowman covered them. Really, the overriding issue, the overriding comments, we added a summary table to the policy, which now allows you and any readers of your policy to go to one page in the document, and you can look and see what you're permitted to invest in, the rating criteria, the maximum maturity, and the asset allocation. So it's a nice summary table. We did not delete the detail language, we simply moved it as an attachment to the policy, so you have all the detail that you need for the permitted, but you have a nice summary table. And then what we also did was we just went through, some of the language was ambiguous, so we wanted to just make it a little clearer for the reader and for you all, so we just really reworded some of the paragraphs. We updated the performance measurements to be appropriate with your overall strategy, and also to give Ms. Bowman and you, the council, the ability to be flexible in different market environments, as we talked about during the first presentation. And then also, there's an attachment for which is a questionnaire, which we recommend for any investments from the local government investment pools. The provider of that program needs to answer these 10 questions, and we believe that's a great tool for you to evaluate whether that's an appropriate investment by answering these detailed questions. And then finally, we updated some language on the roles and responsibilities within the policy, and really what we wanted to do here, number one, clarify the designation or delegation of the finance director, Ms. Bowman, but also delegating authority to the investment manager for any externally managed funds, but also puts more of a requirement on your external investment manager to provide Ms. Bowman and to the council certain information on a periodic basis. And that's important for you to have that information for compliance and other reasons. So those are really the highlights. I did mention you have a 7-year final maturity on a couple of your investments, treasuries and agencies in particular, and we've recommended you reduce that to 5 years. We generally don't see you investing out that long just due to the volatility. But it still stays in line with safety, liquidity, and yield are your primary objectives. And again, we believe that would be a well-written policy. And with that, I'll take any questions from the council. Or Ms. Bowman, we cover that good? Oh, well, okay. All right, any questions from the council?
No question.
Thank you.
Again, we appreciate the relationship
sir.
and look forward to working with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
sir.
Appreciate you.
What's the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion from Deputy Mayor Warner, a second from Councilwoman Cos. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. Okay. We are just...
City business.
What's that? Oh, okay. I'm sitting there looking right at you. Okay, we're moving on to item number 8.1 on the city business, utilities director.
Sir, thank you, Mayor. Item 8, number 1, award bid number B-19-18-COC, WFO wastewater collection submersible wastewater pumps to Barney's Pumps of Lakeland, Florida, for the systematic replacement of lift station pumps, project number WS1141.
Thank you, sir.
If you have any questions I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, sir.
Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Councilman Boisvert,
Second.
second from Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Okay, move on to item number 2, and Public Works Director, and this is, I know one that, I can't remember her name.
Abigail. Abby.
No, no, I know who you are. I'm sorry, Ms. Kinsey. Nope, that wasn't Ms. Kinsey, but it was Ms. Kinney, Jennifer Kinney. I think this is similar to what she had concerns with before, but this for her is more, kind of explain, if you can kind of just read it out so she can,
Okay.
understand where the transfers are coming from on here.
All right.
This particular item, these
All right,
particular
so
items.
this agenda item is to approve a budget resolution amending the 2019 budget, approve a budget transfer in the amount of $45,000 from account 3510-541-6300 infrastructure to account 3510-541-6400 machinery and equipment to allow the purchase of an unbudgeted capital item. It's a 4-yard transit concrete mixer with installation kit, and $24,883, and 3510-541-6300 infrastructure to account 3510-541-5300 road materials and supplies to allow for the thermoplastic striping of Blake Avenue Barbara Jenkins Street and Brevard Avenue between King Street and Willard Street.
Thank you, ma'am. I just wanted her, I don't know if they got this on there, the details of the transfers. I just wanted to make sure she had heard that. So what is the wishes of the council? Oh, I'm sorry.
The only issue I had with this item was regarding Barbara Jenkins, Blake Avenue, with striping. I know we have a analysis on the road that we have done in the past, and I know I talked to Matt about this as well, about, Public Works or someone is going out to review those roads. I just don't want to, spend money on striping, and then we have to turn around and overlay, potentially overlay or mill that road up because it's deteriorating in the next 4 years. So that's something I brought up to Matt, and maybe he can maybe make me feel better.
Yeah, part of the roadway and sidewalk analysis that was completed in 2015, it's simply a snapshot of the condition of the infrastructure at that time. As we know, some roads in the city of Cocoa are, higher traveled than some of the others, heavier weight vehicles. And so while that is a snapshot and they have condition reports based on the roadway conditions at that time, we're now 4 years beyond that, and some of the changes that they've predicted essentially have occurred, and in some cases they haven't. And so as part of that study, one of the recommendations was that staff actually do field inspections on a regular basis. In this particular case, the streets and stormwater manager, I haven't got the information back from him, but he was going out to those sites to inspect the condition of the full roadway. I haven't received the condition report on that yet. Just because the item's approved doesn't mean they actually go out and do it. So.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Okay. So within maybe the next week or so, we'll have analysis on that road.
Certainly.
On one of those roads. Okay.
Thank you, sir. What's the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion from Deputy Mayor Warner, a second from Councilman Bovair. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, item number 3, requesting a settlement authority for the tentative settlement agreement between the former City of Cocoa police officer Ronnie McCarron and the City of Cocoa. Administrative Services.
Yes, sir. As mentioned, the requested action is to request settlement authority for the tentative settlement agreement between former City of Cocoa Police Officer Ronnie McCarron and the City of Cocoa, authorizing the payment of the workers' compensation settlement and to authorize the city manager to finalize and execute such legal agreement to complete the settlement in accordance with the settlement authority approved by the council. The reason that this is coming to you, our workers' comp attorney works with the claimants for potential settlements. It reduces a future liability to the city to settle these claims, and this is above our city manager signing authority. So we bring this to council to approve the tentative settlement. The total is $100,000. There's 4 separate claims, and I've detailed those claims on the background of the agenda item. So,
Thank you, ma'am.
let me know if you have any questions.
What's the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
You get a motion from
I'll second for
Councilwoman Bovair
discussion.
and a second from Councilwoman Cos.
Well, I'm just, there were 4 different injuries?
Yes.
Yeah, over at different points of time during his tenure with the city, and as he was receiving treatment for each of the injuries, and now they're just looking to close out and settle those claims.
And there's items, the settlement amounts vary because it varies on the claim. Some medicals have different levels of medical treatment because this is to settle future treatment. So it basically, instead of treating under the city's workers' comp policy for medical, this closes that, and this is all inclusive of attorney's fees too, so, and future medical, so.
Okay, we got a motion, we got a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to Ms. Singer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. This item is to approve the city to enter into a multi-year agreement with Greater Cocoa Community Partnership and the Historic Cocoa Village Association, which hopefully soon will be the new Historic Cocoa Village Main Street, for leasing of 2 office suites at the Porsche House, and allow the city manager to execute the agreement. To give you a little bit of background, many of you know we have had for many years, over 25 years, 2 separate organizations in the village here. We have the Historic Cocoa Village Association, which is a merchants association, and then we have our Cocoa Main Street program, which is part of the Florida Main Street and which is part of the National Main Street program. They have run kind of separately for many years. We have Cocoa Main Street in the past few years has had some difficult years. They've had some trouble getting members, and they've had trouble getting volunteers and kind of sustaining the association. This Historic Cocoa Village Association has been thriving. They have many merchant members, and so because the Merchants Association is thriving, it makes it a little bit more difficult for the Main Street Association to thrive, just because they are kind of going for the same goal and no need to join 2 different associations. So both programs have the same goals in mind, and so the ultimate goal of this is to merge these 2 groups into one association that will be better for the entire downtown. And so if you're not familiar, a Main Street program has many benefits. The Main Street program can do a lot of things that will help the city and use volunteer power that necessarily, like the city may not necessarily be able to do. And they use a 4-point system, which covers economic vitality, design, organization, and promotion of a historic downtown. And so they can typically conduct certain activities which generally achieve positive community results. So they get community input and consensus regarding proposed community initiatives, develop strategies and procedures for district maintenance and beautification, organize volunteers of merchants, residents, stakeholders, and then connect the district to the community through input, involvement, service, and socialization. Now, many of the above activities would then become the responsibility of the municipality, which we have a little bit harder time to do. So there's so many benefits of this Main Street program, and both the Historic Cocoa Village Association and the Main Street program saw the benefit of these 2 associations becoming one. So they're in the process right now of becoming one association after many years. And so we have in the past, just to give you a little bit of history on what we've done with the Main Street program, is the city has supported this our Main Street program for many years through various ways. The most recent contract that we've had with the Main Street program was a lease agreement for an office space in the Porsche House. It was for Suite 100 downstairs in the Porsche House. And in exchange for that, they would get that for $1 a year. In exchange for that lease agreement, they would provide certain services to the city. So there was a number of projects that were outlined in the lease agreement. Things like our traffic box project that they helped with, the gateway entry fee. There was a number of different projects. And so that was the most recent agreement. You can go back a couple of years. They have been supported through the CRA, the downtown CRA, Cocoa CRA. So there's a number of different ways that we have supported the Main Street program in the past. And so what we're looking to do is that lease agreement is coming to an end, and with the new association forming, we're looking to start a new lease agreement. And with the kind of merger of the 2 groups coming together, there's going to be an expanded staff, and they're going to need more space. So we are proposing the use of 2 offices upstairs, and at the same, what we have done in the past for Main Street, which would be $1 a year. This group would be paying the common area maintenance fees, which are outlined in the agenda item. And once the forming of the new association has not, they're still remaining the Greater Cocoa Community Partnership, which is the 501c3 organization, but they will be changing their DBA from the Cocoa Main Street to, it will be now called Historic Cocoa Village Main Street. So once that is finalized and the paperwork from the state is signed, it will be forwarded to the city manager, and then the agreement, if it gets approved, will then be assigned to the new association. So right now, it's a 3-party contract, but once the new association is formed, it would then be assigned to the new association. So, in that agreement, also, there are some scope of services that we included in there, what this new association will be doing in partnership with the city and what they can do to help the city. So some things that we have included for the time being are promotional tables for the city at their upcoming events, our city logo on their promotional materials for their events, their assistance, the new association will assist us with the city's food drive, our toy drive, and our school supply drive, which we're actually currently in right now. They will help promote our Hot Cocoa Holidays event, which will happen for the month of December and a little bit in November as well, which would be a really fun celebration of our National Cocoa Day. So we're really excited about that. And then they will also help promote our City Government Week in October. So those are just some preliminary scope of services that we have included in this agreement, but our intent is to sit down with the new association once the board has been developed and come up with a more detailed scope of services and things that this new association can provide to the city. So there's so many possibilities out there. Like I said, in the past, we've done things like landscaping and economic development opportunities. So there's a lot of opportunity to partner with this new association. So we are going to sit down with them, and we have put in a stipulation. It has to be, the new detailed scope of services would have to be done by March 2020. So that gives them time to get their new board in place and get a feel for what they can handle and what they feel like they can provide for the city. So that's all the information I have. If you have any questions, we do have some members here from the Historic Cocoa Village Association, but will also be part of the new Historic Cocoa Village Main Street. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might
You
have.
have been working with John for a while, haven't you? But anyway, it was a great presentation.
I have never given a presentation.
Deputy Mayor Warner, and then Councilwoman Cost, and then Councilman Goins. I ain't saying
Oh, I'm done.
I'm really, really sorry that Captain Ed is not here tonight, because many years ago, Captain Ed and I, as part of the Florida Redevelopment Association, went to DeLand and sat down and talked with them about how their Main Street and their Merchants Association and their Bar and Restaurant Owners Association and their Property Owners Association all worked together under the Main Street umbrella, and how they had brought warring factions together under Main Street. When Main Street was brought to the city of Cocoa by Ms. Jan Etz over there, who actually went to Tallahassee and fought to get Main Street to Cocoa, the idea was that Main Street and the Historic Cocoa Village Association would work closely together. And they really tried for a couple of years, and then things just kind of fell apart. And what Main Street brings to the village is fabulous and amazing. You bring the financial resources and the volunteer resources, and they bring the state and the 501c3 resources. It can't be any better. I am so glad we should throw a party. And I'm really, really glad that it is happening right now, because the person who wanted to see this more than anybody in the entire world just passed away this week. And to me, this is like a Mr. Jack Wharton, and this is like a, I'm feeling like he helped make it happen. So it's really, really good. I'm just sorry it's taken so long for it to get here, because I know that together you guys can do some amazing things.
And I do want to say, besides Jack and his efforts, but these ladies over here and Jan have really worked hard to make this happen. It's been a few years in the making, and they really have done a great job of making some concessions and really working together to make it come to fruition.
Well, we wouldn't even have a Main Street if not for Jan. I mean, she took the initiative, she did the hard work, you know, that brought Main Street to Cocoa. And I don't want to embarrass her, but she had the same hairdo then. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
What are they called, the mullet, or?
No, no, I'm calling it Jan's Bouffant. That's
Oh,
what I
Jan
call it.
Bouffant. Okay. Okay, Councilwoman.
Yeah, I was just going to say, of course, you know, I'm all in, and I'll be at the Main Street Conference tomorrow. I purchased a registration tomorrow because I've seen so many great things that, in different places that it can do. The whole gamut. And I'm glad you're going to be in the Porsche House. But I'm hoping that my long-term interest is at the Porsche House, and this is actually something that Main Street could be helpful in, because I see grants come around quite a bit, that the Porsche House at some point actually becomes attraction in and of itself. Been informed that we have several opportunities, that there are older family members that have some of the original furnishings even, and that their children are not really interested. So I would like to see us, you know, this is a while off, but nonetheless pursue that at some point. So just have another attraction, another historic attraction that would fit in with, there are a lot of communities doing that now in Titusville and Rockledge.
Yeah.
And we could do that too.
Do we still do tours? We used to do tours of the Porsche House. Do we
That
still-
was something that the Main Street program was doing as part of their scope of services, but they haven't been in that office for a number of, at least a year, if not more. So they have not been offering that service, no. But hopefully, we can add that back in.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so,
Add something.
yeah, a dollar rent is a great deal, and
Make
it's
a
a great
motion.
deal for us too.
We got a motion from Councilman Boisvert,
Second.
second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. And I just got one comment. I know I talked to the city manager about some,
Come on, mine.
we talked about butt cans down in the village. Who will be responsible for that? I didn't even ask you about that.
It's something that we would bring up to the CRA.
CRA? Okay. Okay. For cigarettes? Yeah, I'm sorry. I am so sorry.
Better clean that
Butt
up.
cans, cigarette butt cans, because I noticed we didn't have any down there, and we were down there with Keep It Var Beautiful.
We'll be talking about that again under
Yeah,
reports.
we're cleaning up the park, and I mean, the park as well as downtown area, and there was a lot of butts, cigarette butts everywhere, and you can see where they're actually putting them out on the buildings, the structures, so, yeah. Okay, then, our next item here is,
Just make a comment. I know there's a lot of parties out there in the audience tonight, but certainly Samantha, has been working on this for a number of years, and I know she may not have cried earlier when her intern was here, but she's probably going to go and cry at this point in time.
Seen him before.
thank you, Sam.
Bye, Pam.
That was mean, Sam. That was really mean.
Okay, our next item was approve a multi-year contract with United Healthcare for Medicare and Advantage Plan, Administrative Services.
Yes, sir. This is requesting approval of the renewal of a multi-year contract with United Healthcare for Medicare Advantage Plan for eligible retirees 65 and over from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020, and payments to eligible retirees for Medicare Part B reimbursement. So the city currently has this Medicare plan for retirees. There's some that we pay for 100%, and then there's some that stay on at their own expense. And our retiree benefits vary based on the date of their hire, and it's based on their age. So this is approving that. It was a reduction on the base rate. Last year, the administration had waived what was called an ACA insurer fee, This year, that rate has been added into the renewal. However, if the government does waive that fee, it will be waived, but at this point, the administration hasn't said they're going to waive it. So which means this is an increase to the overall premium by 6%. So, and I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Ma'am, wishes of the council.
Motion to approve.
You get a motion from Deputy Mayor Warner.
Second.
Second from Councilman Goen. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to any advisory boards and committees. No? Staff report? Abby?
Okay, we have curb ramps in downtown Cocoa are nearly complete. The plans for the US 1 medians are arriving tomorrow. We start planning on 5/20. Paving of Brevard, Illinois, and Harrison is scheduled for the second week in August. The work will be performed at night. This past weekend, we had local artists come out and render art on 3 storm drains throughout the city with messages communicating to citizens that stormwater entering the inlets is conveyed to our rivers. The finished product can be seen on the city website.
Thank you, ma'am.
You want me to pull those up, Abby?
Sure.
You can go ahead with your report, but I'll pull it up so you can all see them.
Yeah, I was out there with Vashti this weekend. That was pretty cool watching her create original art. Just wish it was in front of my house.
Finance Director.
Yes, I would like to note for the record on item number 19-328, there was an error in the section where it's talking about the increase in ad valorem revenue. It was reported as 519,321 on the agenda originally, and that increase really should be 719,321. That's under the background information and also under the budgetary impact section. And I would like to let staff know that I would normally be bringing the investment update in January on an agenda meeting. I wait until the fiscal year kind of closeout gets underway. And as a regular item, I usually bring it back to council in January rather than in the middle of the year. So that's why I asked the investment manager to give you just kind of a brief update of where we are right now. And then also would like to report that utility customer service began on July 15th, closing the lobby, taking any additional customers at 4:30. That seems to have been going really well. We haven't really had any complaints from customers. However, we're coming up pretty soon at the beginning of the month, and that's usually when a lot of properties change hands, rentals end and start, and so you may start seeing some long lines as a result of that, but that seems to be going really well and is helping staff to service those last customers at the end of the day, so I appreciate council's approval of that.
Thank you, ma'am. Sam, you want to run those up so we can, how many is there? 3 of them, right?
Well, the other one, I don't know what's wrong with the screen.
Oh, okay.
It's shrinking them, so this was the only one that was showing up right, but this was the one that was right in front of Michigan, or Michigan in front of the museum, the Brevard History Museum.
I like it.
And then you won't be able to really see too much, but, because they're shrinking the pictures for some reason, but the top one is from Jen Gallo. She's right at Florida and Factory. And then this is, the second one is Vashti, which you can't see either, sorry. Was on Indian River Drive. It's the 1800 block of Indian River Drive. So those are the 3, and then there's one more that we're coordinating with the artist, timed for her to come out and do that one. And then there's another one that we're actually coordinating with Coco Pal to complete. So there'll be 5 total, and this is the first phase of the project, and then we're hoping to continue it, but we wanted to see kind of the reaction and if it's really working on getting messaging out, and then we'll build from there.
Okay. All right, cool.
And one of them's on Fisk, right?
Yes.
That's the one that we're still waiting to get.
Fisk and Highland, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Chief?
I just had one thing. I want to remind everybody this Sunday, the City of Refuge Christian Center, Pastor Boana Bostic will be holding her annual community youth rally. It'll be at Zion Orthodox, the corner of Fisk and Roselle Jones. Begins at 3 p.m. and the topic this year is teen suicide.
Which is steadily rising, which is amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Chief.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir, and welcome back, sir.
Just a reminder that the Florida Planning Management Officials Training is this Friday. 3 of you have already RSVP'd, so.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That's it? Wow. Mr. Walsh?
No report tonight, sir.
No report. I just wanted to remind you, we're in our open enrollment period for benefits, and y'all should have received a packet in your box. So if you have any questions, contact me or Human Resources.
Thank you. Ms. Shealy?
No report.
City Attorney?
Just one item I want to discuss. I was speaking with the city clerk and the city manager. As you know, there's a vacancy on the downtown CRA board, and the city council, of course, serves as that board, and there are 2 lay appointments that are made. So we have this vacancy. My understanding from speaking with the clerk is that there are 3 potential applicants currently on file. Question to the council this evening is whether or not you have any special requirements, given that this vacancy will be filled by a person that's going to serve with you in your capacity as the CRA. For example, do you want a notice published inviting applicants? Do you wish just to see the 3 applicants that are currently on file, or some other way to make this appointment?
Is there requirements for that?
The person would have to meet the requirements, the eligibility requirements under the CRA statute.
What are the eligibility requirements for that position?
They have to reside within the area of operation of the CRA or be engaged in business in the area of operation of the CRA.
Okay. So it can be either a resident or a business owner within the CRA? Okay.
A business owner or
Engaged in business. There's a definition that's been construed by Florida Attorney General that provides guidance as to what engaged in business or profession in the CRA is. I mean, I can certainly provide that information to the council for your information, because the person would have to meet the eligibility requirements.
I would like to see us advertise this on our website so we can, so everyone would know, give them an opportunity to,
Yeah.
you know. What about property owners?
Gotta be a business.
If that was the case, then Jan
Yeah, I
would
don't
still-
believe property owners in and of itself meet the eligibility requirements.
That was the original intent.
Yeah,
Even though we make them get a business license to be a property owner and rent that property out?
that was
That doesn't fall
Stewart's
under
problem. That doesn't fall under the engaged in
business?
business.
Okay.
So,
I would like the opportunity just to review those applications. And maybe potentially we can appoint, we have, all of us have an opportunity to potentially appoint someone to those positions, so. But I definitely would love.
There's only one.
There's only
one, right?
Well,
Okay.
I would like to advertise to get the widest
Yeah.
scope of,
Yeah, I just think just to give everyone an
Qualified
opportunity, so
applicants.
no one say, hey, I didn't know, so.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that are very involved in the downtown, so definitely want to advertise it, because it's been a long time since we've had an open position. Jan and Captain Ed have both been on that board for years, so definitely need to advertise it.
So in terms of advertising, are you referring to actually placing an ad, or are we talking about using social media, contacting HCVA, CMS?
Using our city
Cocoa Village?
resources and our connections.
Just want to make sure. Say, bring it back at the second meeting in August?
It comes back to council, not to the CRA board, right? Okay.
correct.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can go ahead and do that, and you can put like a 14 or 21 day requirement to submit an application. They would have to fill out the city's standard uniform board application. And of course, there would have to be an eligibility check done that the city does on a routine basis for appointments. And then you would have a number of applications to consider. And as Councilman Goins indicated, each council member would have the ability to nominate somebody for consideration for that appointment, and you all have to decide that by majority vote at the appropriate time.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that's my report.
And welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Good to be back.
Assistant City Manager.
No report, sir.
Finally took a vacation.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. One, just want to report to council, prior to leaving for vacation, I did have a meeting with Representative Soroy, discussed potential issues for the upcoming session, as well as potential projects that he might be willing to consider funding. Mr. Mayor, you talked about it earlier. I'll just kind of address some of it. I believe the comments about the two items. One was regarding the consent agenda and the HVAC system. It's my understanding, Dial Plant, they have an existing contract with a company, and in order to standardize the system with the existing contract for service and repair, the agenda item did request for that sole source. So there was that consistency in the maintenance. In terms of repair parts and interoperability with the existing equipment that existed out there. That was the reason why. And then I thought it was either one of two instances, one emergency purchases that happened and then are placed on the agenda. And in the event of emergency purchase, as council's aware, it's Section 15.9 of the FOM covers that, and required if there is a bona fide emergency consistent with the parameters in the financial operations manual, to notify you, which has occurred in the past. You received an email from me, and then depending on the amount of the expenditure, you received an email. But what has always happened, regardless if you receive notification by phone or by an email, is that we bring it back before council, for the sole purposes of promoting the transparency and accountability, especially as it relates to emergency purchases. It might be, and I'll follow up with Ms. Kinney, but it might be related to contingency. And as you'll note in this agenda packet, under informational reports, many times you approve a project with a contingency amount that authorizes me to approve, change orders within that amount. But it's still governed by my spending, the spending limits for the city manager as defined in the I think both the charter as well as our financial operations manual. But we also provide, like in this, once a month, and it happens to be this particular council meeting, is the contingency report, which has every project that has a contingency and the status of any change orders and what is the level of contingency that was used and or that remains. So, but I'll be glad to meet with Ms. Kenny, and that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Deputy Mayor Warner.
Yeah, just a couple of things, Mr. Mayor. I spent the last couple of weeks up in Georgia and had the opportunity to visit some wonderful little downtowns in some small cities. And one of the downtowns I visited, I was fortunate enough to get some time from one of their council people and find out that they're having a lot of similar issues with their parking and other things that take place in the downtown, and employees and merchants sometimes taking up parking, which really should be for visitors. And they have 2 parking garages, and they've also got some private parking garages attached to some of their bigger businesses, but they are having a problem in getting people to park in their parking garages, even though they only charge $1 an hour for parking. So it's going to be coming up on a future agenda for them to instead of charging for parking in their parking garages, that parking is now going to be free, and street parking will be charged at $1 an hour. And they have beautiful diagonal parking, and they have streets lined with crepe myrtles, which do not destroy the sidewalks. They still have some lovely oaks, but those are placed in places where they don't do anything. They have lovely brick pavers, but they're combined with concrete. Their sidewalks, lucky for them, are much wider than ours, but they were very eager to share the information about their parking struggles and how they managed to get their parking structures done in the length of time that it took. They also have 2 hotels, one small boutique hotel, which is Hawthorne by Wyndham, which actually moved into an old building and remodeled and renovated that old building. And now they have just built a new Courtyard by Marriott on the periphery of the downtown. Those also were very difficult and a long time in coming. The Hawthorne by Wyndham, they said, was quicker and easier because they took over existing space. But their downtown in a lot of ways is similar to ours with a water feature, and they have just recently built a new, they call it a forum, but it's basically a civic center and event venue. So there were a lot of similarities. It was great. I'll be bringing that up as we go through some of our processes and some of those things. But one of the things that I found the most interesting, which came up with the mayor's discussion of butt cans tonight, is that there is no smoking or vaping allowed on the streets in their downtown. And they have signs that say, "We appreciate you helping keep our downtown clean." I took pictures of the signs by not smoking and not vaping. And this is Georgia, where smoking is pretty popular. So it goes over pretty well. Nobody smokes and nobody vapes on the streets of downtown Rome, Georgia. So that might be something we want to look at besides butt cans, just write that up. And earlier I mentioned Mr. Jack Wharton, who nobody here remembers except Mr. Greenwood out there.
I do.
And of course, the city attorney and the city manager. Mr. Wharton took over the Village Merchants Association back in the 90s when the village was struggling, really, really struggling. And he and his partner, Mr. Boland, had been in business up in Indiana and had a lot of experience. And they took over managing the craft fairs and the Merchants Association. They built the membership of the Merchants Association up. They built the craft fairs from nothing to over 300 vendors at every craft fair. There were waiting lists for the craft fairs. They worked very hard, and they invested their own money. They took over management of the Porsche House and the Civic Center for $100,000 a year. And ran those facilities. Everything that happened in Cocoa Village happened through the Merchants Association, and that included the Brevard Symphony. They actually brought the symphony to Cocoa Village. They paid for everything those first few years, except the fireworks. Cocoa Village would not be where it is today without Mr. Wharton and Mr. Boland.
Correct.
Who really brought it back up. I spent 10 years in the Porsche House working for them, and I had a nervous breakdown in the process because anybody who knows Jack Wharton knows that you couldn't work for him without having a nervous breakdown. He told me one time he made his secretary cry every day of his work life, and after I met his secretary, she informed me that she learned very rapidly that if she started the day off with tears, the day went much better because he was remorseful for the rest of the day. So he just thought he was making her cry. He did pass away this week at the age of 90, and for anybody who, I've had a bunch of questions from people, there is going to be a service on August 4th in Bloomington, Indiana for him. But his niece Susan and I are going to try and put something together here locally because he had so many friends in the village for the multiple years that he's spent here. And so we will let everybody know if we manage to put something together. He had a lot of friends still here in the Brevard County area, and his legacy in Cocoa Village, especially with the Brevard Symphony Orchestra, will hopefully live on for many, many years. And that's the end of my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. You can always tell some former council members when they're out in the audience. You know, but
You talking about
anyway.
Mr. Greenwood, maybe?
Councilman Goins.
Okay. Passionate for Cocoa.
Councilman Goins.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I think, just by being involved I love seeing people sit in the audience, and definitely people who watch from at home as well, just to be involved with the community and within the city. There's a few things I wanted to discuss. I talked to the chief today, and so on social media social media is a real big problem. Many different levels. People become Hulkamania or whatever you want to call it behind the keyboard. So, I wanted to bring this to the attention. Like I said, I talked to the chief today about it. We've been getting hammered the last few days, last week or so, just about how horrible Cocoa is and how much crime is, running rampant in the area. So I wanted to debunk that conversation publicly. And I actually spoke to the person as well, personally, so they know I was bringing this to the public forefront. So, Chief, as far as crime, comparing it to 2017, 2018, as far as this year, do we have a running rampant problem of crime in the city of Cocoa?
No, sir.
So I know it definitely, I commend all policemen for what they do, fire for what they do. Chief, you do, and I talked to you about this today. Your job, I know I couldn't do. Your job within the city in certain areas is very tough. You have to be very strategic, and this has been going on for a long time. This is not like a new problem. And I talked to Matt about this today as well. Anywhere you have poverty situations, at times crime is prevalent, and that's just it's part of life. It's part of human nature. I know a lot of guys I know that I'm friends with that sell drugs, that I talk to on a daily basis, trying to get them off the corner or get them, to get a job, or I try to offer them a job. So this is a problem within all cities, not just the city of Cocoa. So I commend the police department for doing everything that they possibly can do. The council that sits up here, we can't control all issues. A chief can't stop someone from having a nervous breakdown and then they want to go kill somebody for whatever reason. So it's a team effort when it comes down to fighting crime or economic development. So I love our staff here. I believe that the city of Cocoa is moving in the right direction. Do we have some issues here and there? Of course. But name one city that don't. I believe in the city of Cocoa. I believe in what we're trying to do. My main thing is to change the perception of Cocoa. We can have all the best numbers in the world, but at the end of the day, we need to have our perception. And I believe by having a school like Endeavor, who is now, I think they are at C School, if I be correct, they're doing amazing things. The Cocoa Community First are helping them, and Cocoa Pal and all these different organizations within the city are doing amazing things within the city. And I appreciate all of you. Mr. Lighthorder, you're doing some great things, and I appreciate you for that. I call Pastor Jarvis all the time. They're talking about the amazing job he's doing within the city. If all these connections come into play, Cocoa, the perception would change, and I believe that. So I don't allow people to bash the city. I don't allow other people to bash our council members unless they call them directly. They can't call me bashing the city manager. He know what I did last week. Somebody tried to call me. I called him directly and said, this is what they said, because I don't want nothing to be twisted when you come to me. So if you come to me, you better come to me with some good information. Don't come to me with drama and gossip. I don't do that. But I believe in the city. I believe in our council. I believe we're doing a beautiful job. So again, Mr. Cantaloupe, you're doing an awesome job. So just to throw it out there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
It's really, I just want to say, it's the members of the police department.
Yeah,
you know?
sure.
I mean, yes, I am the head, but it's our officers, our civilian staff, our dispatchers, everybody that works there that's making things happen. And it's our community. I mean, the community is doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah, yeah.
And thanks.
It's all a team effort. It's teamwork, man. It's not one person. You know, and I had a conversation with several people this week, man. No matter if I'm sitting here, no matter who it may be, it still takes work. It takes the community. It takes people picking up the phone, dialing hotlines, calling the police department, you know, see something, say something. You know, those things connect with each other. So it's not one person, but we all are connected. So I definitely, you know, I wanted to say that because, like I said, social media right now, the political environment that we're in right now, it is a very different space. And it's a lot of people that say a lot of different things, but when you throw, you know, words out there, I'm going to make sure I'm going to do my research. And I'm going to get those numbers, and I'm going to call the chief, and I'm going to call the city manager to make sure, okay, where are we right now? So, I just wanted to bring that up. I think this was an awesome meeting today. I think a lot of things got accomplished. This weekend, Saturday, we doing a helping volunteer at Clear Lake Middle School. Well, the former Clear Lake Middle School. We're doing a backpack giveaway. I think that's through the county, correct? Am I correct, Samantha?
Yeah, Roberta Schools Foundation.
All right, so I think we start at 8 o'clock till 3 p.m. I think they're looking for a lot of volunteers to come out. So I know I committed for Saturday morning. So so if you have kids, and I think it's a different criteria, they have to sign up for it. Am I right? Yeah. I don't have all the information on it, but okay. All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Coss. Councilwoman Coss.
Yeah, well, speaking of the police, thanks to Officer Ryan Bracken. I guess he's the brother of the guy that we acknowledged tonight. I got to ride with him on Saturday night, and of course, riding with the police on a Saturday night, on a hot Saturday night, is a lot different than the first time I did it, which was during the day. So glad to have that experience. I also got to ride with Dennis Bunt this week, and that was interesting. I've got several things on my agenda that I'd like to research further in that regard, and in making code enforcement a good tool for our communities. And also, I'm sorry that Jenny left, because I was going to say that her comments in regard to the dollars, and I know the particular item she mentioned, I understand why we were doing that, but in studying the budget, what I've come to realize is that we actually have significant budget. We have $40 million in operations. We have, you know, the $80 to $90 million enterprise, but most of that money goes outside of our city, whether, you know, it be in contracts, and we don't, and outside of the county. So as much as possible, it would be good if we can, you know, try to spend that money within our own communities. And it also goes, one of the things I asked for in the budget was that some incentive for our employees to actually live in Cocoa, to actually take on that ambassador role of living here. And hopefully as our housing improves, that will be a more desirable thing to do, because I think that we'll have a stronger workforce that way. And then I'll throw one out for Alec. Last week I went to the Titusville Tree Workshop. I would love to see us have one of those. In fact, what they're doing is rewriting their tree ordinance so that they, you know, really begin to appreciate and keep their heritage trees, so that they do an inventory of their canopy so that they can effectively use it for stormwater management. And what we're going to see in this budget is a real shift, so that we're actually looking towards storm preparedness. And so I'm glad we, you know, voted on tax rate tonight, and hopefully that will go through so we can accomplish some things. And last, but certainly not least, my favorite thing is that the Cocoa Tigers Chorus is performing, matinee performance, August 10th, $25 a ticket. There are still tickets left. We've raised, just within the effort here, we've raised $20,000, and if we could sell all 500 tickets, that'd be another $10,000. And they're on their way to Carnegie Hall, so please buy tickets. Yep.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Bover.
No report, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. I just got a couple of things here. This coming Friday on the 25th at 8 a.m., if you would like to stop by Westminster, Asbury Arms, KBB is gonna be there. They're actually gonna be out picking up trash once again, starting at 8 a.m. this Friday at the main office. I know we have the workshop at 9, but I am going to go by there and spend at least 45 minutes doing there and then head over to the workshop here at City Hall. So, as I told them, I will be out there again to help support them. So, anyone that would like to show up and do that would be greatly appreciated. Once again, with our police department, I keep hearing this whole thing about some of us not supporting our police department. I can tell you I support our police department. I believe in what they do. We got some great officers. The job is not an easy job. It's a tough job. I've been out there. I've seen the way they're talked to or spoken to for when they're crowds or just certain individuals, totally disrespectful. And it's a tough job. And they're human just like any of us, you know. And we know that they have their specialized training and so forth and so on. And I just, you know, hope and pray that they continue to treat everybody the same because, you know, I know it's tough because you don't know what went on that morning, that night, what's going on in their personal life. And but I just recognize that not everybody's a criminal and not everybody is a thug or whatever, drug dealer or whatever, so far and so on. But they do a wonderful job. I'm proud of them. And that remains to be said. If there's any resources our police department need to do their job, then I'm in it 100%. I always have been. And I'm calling the chief whenever there are issues. I see things, and as I'm passing down the road, I call him and say, hey, chief, you know, this right here is going on. It looks kind of suspicious. You might want to have someone stop by and look at it. And I'll do that. If there's some concerns from citizens, I'll take it to the city manager so he could pass it on to the chief as well. So just want to squash that in there that, you know, that we don't support our police department. And it's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard of. But anyway, also a big kudos to Councilman Goins. I had one of our future business owners here in the city of Cocoa. I guess there were some issues, and he was just thinking, as I talked to him, he was telling me what a great job Councilman Goins did with addressing that issue with whoever. I don't know all the details, but he was so grateful and so appreciative. So just a big thank you to you for handling that, and we appreciate that because it makes all of us look good. And then also, just going back to the police deal, you know, I don't want to harp on that too much. I mean, just the 3 officers that was up here today, I mean, that's a reflection of what happens in our community and what our officers do at times, from time to time. So, and also volunteer appreciation. I know we've talked about it was a breakfast, and I've kind of taken a consensus from some of the boards, and it's almost 100% everyone said the same thing, dinner, but we have a couple of restaurant owners that are willing and stated that they would literally volunteer and pay for, you know, cook the food at no cost to the city and provide this service to us if we would like for them to do that. So I've talked to the city clerk about that and gave her, I think I may have told her one of the names.
No, you were
did?
Arnold.
Okay. And he also would like to provide lunch for the employees here at City Hall. You all just give him a date, let him know, and then he'll make sure that and the number of employees. He just wanted to provide lunch for everyone, just to show you how much he appreciates being in the city of Cocoa. So, and then the last thing was Judy Riaz Park. I have a tendency to drive around, and this whole tree thing has really got me going now. I've been driving around looking at all. It's crazy, man, that I'm getting obsessed with these trees now, and because I've heard so much about them on the Planning and Zoning Board, and so anytime I see these canopies throughout the city, man, I'm amazed at the amount of canopies we have over the streets throughout the city of Cocoa, and there's tons of them all over in our community, man, and some of them are just absolutely beautiful. And but I noticed that they had to cut some roots of some of the oak trees there at Junariel's and put those sidewalks there to replace those sidewalks. And I hope they didn't do any damage. I don't know how that whole deal worked out. I looked at it, took some pictures, and but hopefully there was someone there to at least kind of advise them a little bit on making sure they don't kill those trees, because it was a nice setup the way they had it situated there. So with that being said, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Get a motion
Second.
to adjourn, second from, first from Councilman Bovair, second from Councilman Goin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Trying to get these trees out of my head.
Alex, I'm buying a chainsaw tomorrow at, I'm buying a chainsaw and I'm gonna go through the store. And I'm buying a truck with one of those spreaders on it. You know,
Yeah, healing. And then she came down.